Hi, thanks for checking out our channel and our videos that we have on YouTube. We've got about 442 videos on YouTube as of today. What I'm going to do on this video, I want to talk a little bit about this particular unit and what we are here at Fencer Fixer. We're just a repair shop. We're just an independent shop that works on fence chargers of all sorts for people. We get them shipped in from all over the United States. We get emails and phone calls and questions and stuff from all over the world. We get people from New Zealand, Australia, Europe, Canada, South America, and Mexico. Sometimes will contact us for help and troubleshooting. We have sent out parts for people to fix their own units, and we've sent out parts honestly to I don't think I've ever sent anything to South America or Mexico before, but I've sent a few parts to parts of Europe, Canada a bunch of times, and Australia, New Zealand a few times. So we help out everywhere we can. And we're, like I said, we're just an independent shop. We don't have any ties, any brand. No, we're not loyal to any brand. We just work on stuff. That's all we are, is just a repair shop. So we see the good and the bad of about every brand that's out there that's been made. So if you want the honest truth of what's good and what's bad, if you're tired of wasting your money on stuff, then let us know or ask. Go to my website and you can call me. All my information's on the website, fencerfixer.com, and Fencer and Fixer is both spelled with an F as in Frank. So what I want to do on this video is talk a little bit about this one and what's good about it. There's not a lot of bad about this particular unit. It's a Gallagher M1800i. It's one of their fancier I series model. They're not a cheap model by any means. They're about $1,000, $800 probably, somewhere in that range. But 18 stored joules. But what's nice about these units is they have a technology built into them called adaptive control. And Gallagher's been doing adaptive control on a lot of their bigger units for about 35 years. Back in the 80s, they were doing it on their big MX 5000s, MX 2500s, big 220 volt, 25 and 50 joule units that they were selling. And what adaptive control is on bigger units, what you have problems with is they put out a lot of power, and if there's not enough fence to handle the power that's being pushed out of the unit, there's not enough wire to absorb all of it, then you get overheating problems on the inside because the charger's trying to put out 15 joules, 10 joules, 5 joules, whatever the joule rated of a charger is trying to put out all that power. And if there's not enough fence to absorb that energy, things start to get hot on the inside, and transformers go bad, boards overheat, things like that. It happens over the course of time. It doesn't happen like right away. I mean, things will get hot pretty quick, but the failure of something happens over the course of 6 months, a year, 5 years. It just varies. But what Gallagher does with their adaptive control units is they adapt their output energy to what they feel hooked up to them. So if you've got a unit that's rated for 500 acres, but you've only got 30 acres on it, but you're dealing with goats or sheep or a lot of vegetation on the fence, then you need a little bit more power to fight through that kind of stuff. This unit, like this one, will adapt its output to the fence conditions. So if it's a pretty clean fence, it might only use 10 or 20% of its energy. But if it feels some resistance touching it, a bunch of grass, a bad short in the fence, say a deer jumped the fence and got his leg caught around it, dripped it off the insulator, now it's resting up against a T-post, or a tree limb fell on it, knocked it down. It doesn't know the difference, the charger doesn't know the difference between a bunch of grass on the fence or a bad wire against a T-post or a tree limb laying on it. It just feels resistance. So then this charger of this style here, the adaptive control units, they will adapt their output to the fence conditions. So depending on what kind of short you have out there, it may go from 10 or 20% energy output to the fence. It may jump up to 40, 50, 80% of its energy to the fence, and it will adjust as it sees fit. So and as the fence conditions get better, say the weeds that are on there get drier and starts to burn the grass down starts to kill the grass and burn it down a little bit. the energy will lower back down from, say, 50% output energy to maybe 10 or 20% output energy. That's why these units here will last for years and years and years and years. The only thing that ever gets these Gallagher units or is lightning. I've never ever seen one in the times of working on this stuff, an I-series unit go bad because of faulty electronics. It's very, very rare. I can't think of a time. We've worked on handfuls of these I-series over the years, and every single one of them that I can recall has been some kind of power surge on the AC side, or something came on the fence and ground side and burned it up. Lightning coming on the fence side and burned it up. So they're just a really well-made unit. And a lot of brands don't do that adaptive control. If they do it on the great big models that are, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $2,000 units. These big, 30, 40, 50, 60, 80, joule units, and then they'll get into that power on demand or adaptive control, whatever you want to call it. But some people don't want to spend that kind of money to have that kind of performance. So Gallagher actually makes, they don't make this model anymore. They make an MB1800i. It's a plug-in or battery-powered unit, or for 12-volt unit. But they do make, at least here in the States, they make an M1500 and an M1100 that are both adaptive control. They're the non-fancy unit. They're just a box that clicks with some lights on there, from red, yellow, green, tell you how your fence is doing. And it doesn't come with this digital display unit, but it does have that adaptive control. So if you want that kind of performance on a unit, but without having to spend all the bit of extra money for the technology that's built into one of these, but you just want a box that performs good, that doesn't overheat, it doesn't have any problems like that, then you could step down to an M1500 or M1100. They're really well built. They're designed to go 10 plus years. I'd never had one of them come in. I think maybe one, and that was from a power surge on the AC side. So, you spend more on a Gallagher up front, but you get a really, really, really well-made unit. You're not paying just for a name. You're paying for the quality of the unit. Gallagher builds their units in-house. They don't have them outsourced to China or another company or anybody like that. They make all their stuff in-house. They make their cases in-house. They build their boards in-house. They even make their own transformers in-house. They have a big winding machine, the plastic injection molding machines. They do 80-90% of the units, the way of what it's made of, is built in-house by Gallagher. So their quality control is done by them themselves. They don't have to worry about, okay, we're gonna have this company make our circuit boards, and we're gonna get those circuit boards from them and install them on our unit. And then say, what if that company over there decides we need to cut costs a little bit? We're gonna buy a cheaper chip or a cheaper resistor, cheaper diode, whatever, cheaper component part, and then they start installing those pieces in there, and then the manufacturer that's putting the units together, they're installing those subpar, not very well made boards anymore. And then it comes back to bite them in the butt, because now they're having a cheaper quality components put on their boards, try to save a couple bucks here and there, and then it comes back to bite them in the rear end in the end. So that's what's nice about Gallagher. Gallagher builds all that stuff in house. So that's why I like them. I really, really like the Gallagher stuff. Another way I always look at it, there are some good brands out there that aren't as expensive, but they won't last near as long. And there's some cheaper brands out there that are a lot cheaper than Gallagher, and I can almost guarantee they will not last near as long. Like, I talked to a customer the other day. They had a Zariba 100-mile unit, 6 joule output, probably like 10 stored. So a Gallagher equivalent would be like a M1100. It's 11 stored joules, probably outputs, 5 to 6, 7 joules probably in that range, depending on the adaptive stuff. And that unit's about $350, give or take, somewhere in that range. And a Zariba 6 joule 100-mile unit's about anywhere from 150 to 225, depending on if they're on sale or not. So they are a lot cheaper on the Zariba stuff than is a Gallagher, but a Gallagher unit is designed to last 10 plus years, and they have that adaptive control on that size of that size of unit. Zariba doesn't. So their unit's a lot cheaper they put out all the power all the time, so things get hot. And if you don't have enough fence to absorb all the energy off of the Zariba unit, their transformers go bad all the time. I don't know how many transformers we replace a year, 200-300 transformers a year on a Zariba 100 and 200 mile unit. I mean, they're just garbage units. So the money you save buying a Zariba unit, you know, say half the price, give or take, maybe 60% of the price or so, and then you might get a year, 2, 3, 4 years, and then it's going to come into repair. And then the money you saved is just going to be turned right back around and spending it into fixing the stupid thing. Where you spent the money up front on a Gallagher unit, that 2, 3, 4 years from now, it's still going to be running just fine. You know, so these are in an investment up front, but they are well-made units. They're not like a cheapo junk unit. They're just a really high-quality unit. So I really, really like the Gallagher stuff. They're just a top-tier brand. They're a lot better built than Speedrite. They're a lot better built than Cyclops. A lot better built than Parmac and stuff. I mean, some of those brands are, I mean, like Cyclops is decent, cheaper than Gallagher. But I don't know. I see on average, I don't see them being 10 years old. I mean, I've seen some that have been repaired once in 10 years, that sort of thing. But you do get, you know, they are cheaper in price. Gallagher's all carry a 3-year warranty. Cyclops carries a 1-year warranty. Speedrites also carry a 3-year warranty, same as Stay Fix. They carry a 3-year warranty. But man, for the money you spend on a Speedrite unit, Stay Fix unit, you'd be better money spent putting it into a Gallagher. They just have a long-term longevity. They're expensive to repair. I mean, they're not cheap to fix on the Speedrite stuff and the Stay Fix stuff. They're not cheap to fix. I mean, they're cheaper than buying a new unit, but they're not cheap by any means. They're expensive brand, expensive parts. So that's just my 2 cents on that stuff. I mean, Parmac, they used to be pretty good 8, 9, 10 years ago, but oh man, not anymore, man. They're just not as well built as they used to be. Sometimes you get a good one, and sometimes you get a bad one. But you know, there's just too many times. I hate putting the money into a subpar unit if it's not gonna hold up. You know, you don't know if you're going to get a good one or a bad one. You might buy 10 of them, and 5 or 6 might last you 5, 6 years. Excuse me, or you might get 5 or 6 that last you a year or 2 or 3. It's just kind of a coin toss. You never know what you're going to get. So I really like these things. Now, one thing I want to do on this unit is I want to show you that adaptive control, what that exactly is. What's nice is you can see it on these units here because they have the digital display. But I'm telling you that they will also do it in the M1100 and M1500, and it will change on this screen here. So I'm gonna power it up. Like I said, this one got hit by lightning too. Now, one thing you did see was when I first turned it was at 6.1, and then it jumped to 8 roughly. That was it itself dapping itself up to its max voltage. Now let me go grab a load tester here. This is a 150 ohm load. This is a 150 ohm resistor, I think a 20 watt. So what we're going to do is we're going to simulate a pretty heavy load to the fence. And see, there's usually an amp number on here as well. And since there's nothing hooked up to it, it's not being loaded down, so there's no amps. So when you're looking at your unit, if you got one of these, the voltage should be high, amperage should be fairly low. If you get a pretty heavy load on it, this number will drop down but then climb back up as high as it can to adapt to the output, and then this amp number will change depending on what kind of load you have. So I'm going to put it 0 ohms is a dead short. This is a 150 ohm load, so the closer you get to 0, the worse the shortest. So we're going to put this across fence and ground and watch the voltage drop, and it's going to climb back up, and you'll see how the amps will climb up too. See, we're reading 6.5 and we're at 43 amps. But did you see how the number went down to like 4 or something and then climbed back up to 6.5? So it's trying to put out 6.5 kV at 150 ohms. It's got 43 amp load on it, for the faults on there. So that's a pretty heavy load, but you're still putting out 6.5 kV, so it's still putting out a heavy load or heavy good amount of voltage for a pretty heavy load. So I'm going to remove the load off there. So now it's going to adjust itself back to its thing, and we have no load on, so that's why it's not reading any amps. So watch this again. We'll put the load on there. Watch the number fall, and it's going to climb back up again. So you can see how it adapts its output to the fence conditions. So it does this on the fly. I mean, as soon as you take the load away, you know, it adjusts itself right back to what it feels it needs to be at. So on average, it puts out about 8,000 volts with good fence. You know, and that amp number will vary depending on how heavy a load you got. So say you got a little bit of grass, it might only be putting out 10 amps or 20 amps. I mean, as long as it's putting out good kV, watch that number there more than anything. But this number comes pretty high. This number falls down, say, below 5, and this number is sitting like 50, 60 amps. Then I would say, okay, go check your fence, figure out where your problem's at and everything. Then you can, then you go back to the unit, see what's reading, and then the numbers, amps fall down some, and the voltage climbs up some, you know, okay, I'm heading the right direction. So these units are really well built. You know, if you don't want the fancy stuff like this has got, you don't care about the numbers and all that stuff, you just want a box that clicks but has that adaptive control features to it, look at the Gallagher M1100 or the Gallagher M1500. Those are both adaptive control units. Their smaller ones are not. They're M800s and smaller. They are not adaptive control, but they don't have the overheating problems. They have fully sealed transformers, fully sealed capacitors, and the boards are overly built on the units, so that way they've got good components, and they can handle the stress of being put on the fence. But those are smaller units, you know, so you don't have to worry about that adaptive control too much. But anyways, hope you find this video interesting. And if you like this kind of stuff, please subscribe to the channel. We work on a lot of units. We're pretty good on troubleshooting units and explaining how units work. So if you're ever curious on how a unit works, on the features of a unit, ask us. I mean, just do a YouTube search and just type in your model and your make of brand that you've got, and you'll find a video of ours out there, I'm sure. We've got, like I said, we got 442 videos out there on YouTube. So, well, until next time, we'll see you guys later on, and remember to subscribe to the channel, hit that thumbs up button, share the video, tell your friends about us. All of our contact information of where to find out about us is down below in the description area. So until next time, we'll see you later on.